Chapter 3. System Transport Vessel Primogenia. Inner Terran Approaches. The Primogenia slid through the void towards Terra. Space became more crowded with every second. Ships and void stations filled the outer orbits. Even with tight control over which vessels could approach this close, there were hundreds moving to and from the planet. Many sat in void docks, regurgitating their cargoes into vast stores. Then there were the orbital plates. Old before unification, they were like cities cast from Terra and left to hang in the heavens. Around and between them floated strings of weapon platforms. Monitor craft moved amongst stations and cargo ships in shoals. Each monitor was small for a warship, but bristled with firepower equal to warp-capable craft many times its size. Imperial Fist's battle barges and cruisers stalked amongst the other craft like lions. And larger than all of them, hanging above Terra like a second moon, was the Phalanx. In all the Imperium, there was no warship larger or mightier. Even the Gloriana-class craft fell short of Rogel Dorn's fortress flagship. It held station on the edge of Terra's grasp, looking both inwards and outwards, the Guardian standing over the last gate. Past and through this throng, the Primogenia surged on. The monitor craft, locked to its side, transmitted clearance codes as it entered into Terra's outer control sphere. A last check with the pilot cadre on the Primogenia's bridge confirmed that all was well. Neither the monitor nor any of the other vessels noticed the shuttle that slipped from the cargo ship's rear launch bay. The first sign that anything was amiss came when the Primogenia needed to make its first turn to synchronize its course with the orbital dock. Signals passed from the dock to the Primogenia and its monitor craft when it failed to alter course. No response came from the pilot cadre on the Primogenia's bridge. Alerts began to sound on the monitor craft. Assault troops began to run to the docking limb linked to the Primogenia. 5 seconds after the cargo ship failed to respond to the signals, warnings began to shrill through the orbital defenses. Alarms began to sound across the orbit of Terra. Gun platforms rotated to face the Primogenia. Commands flashed between the nearest warships. Vessels close by began to scatter. Chains of other ships queuing for the orbital docks broke apart. Those ships closing on the outer orbits cut their speed. Signals battered the Primogenia. It burned on, silent, falling towards Terra like a dagger. Bab Bastion, the Imperial Palace, Terra. "It is holding course for surface impact," Admiral Sue Cassen called across the command chamber. "Distance from the nearest vessel," said Arcamus. Above him, the holoprojection showed the Primogenia trailing fire as its engines pushed it deeper into Terra's orbit. 2,014 kilometers, said a human officer. He nodded. Calculations sped through his thoughts. "They're still too close," he said. "Get them clear." The quiet of the chamber had vanished. Amber light flashed. Distances and velocities spun through the holo displays. Ships, stations, and shuttlecraft blinked back at him in cold light. Every officer in the room was speaking, calling information and orders over each other. The servitors were rocking and rattling in their cradles, fingers dancing over systems. The tech priests stood amongst them, twitching as they and the machines flooded their synapses with data. And above them, the image of the Primogenia fell down and down through the dark. "Reason of truth confirms it has range and lock on the target. Orbital rotation bringing it above the horizon in 35 seconds. Ganymus defenses have firing solution. I have request for order to fire. Minimum safe distance. A reactor of that size. Target 3 seconds away from the medial orbital layer. Still no reply signal from the bridge." It had been 41 seconds since they had come to full alert. But in the compressed instant of Arcamus's awareness, it felt like the blink of an eye. He could hear each voice in the chamber, and his eyes and mind were reading data from the displays faster than the tech priests and humans could process it. He saw and understood it all. The Primogenia might have suffered a catastrophic accident. Its crew might have overcome the pilot cadre and set the ship to crash into Terra's surface. There were dozens of possibilities, and none of them mattered. The ship would die before it touched Terra's atmosphere. Its reactors and fuel would stain the sky for a few moments. Those other ships close by might suffer superficial damage, but no more. That was the cruelty of necessity, and, to the Praetorians of Terra, acceptable. "Signal the reason of truth," he said. The sound dimmed for an instant, and then a vox-link crackled into life. "The reason of truth stands ready," came a voice like a growl of thunder. "This is Arcamus. I speak with the Praetorian's voice." "We hear and obey, Arcamus. What is your order?" "Last vessel is approaching outer edge of target ship's reactor explosion radius," buzzed one of the tech priests. Arcamus blinked, watching the Primogenia fall. "Fire," he said. There was a pause as the signal reached up to the reason of truth, and then the warship fired. It was a battle cruiser, and its weapons could break star fortresses, but for this execution it used a fraction of that strength. A pulse of turbo laser fire struck the Primogenia's engines an instant before macro shells ripped into its hull. The unstable plasma cylinders and explosive compounds hidden within the crates, packed into its holds, detonated. The fire ripped across the heavens like the burning laughter of a cruel god. Dome of Illumination, the Imperial Palace, Terra. The Imperial Fists squad swept into the Dome of Illumination. There were 12 of them. Their left shoulder pads were bare iron. Black lightning bolts marked their chests. The squad split, trios of warriors running in different directions, vanishing through doors to other parts of the palace. Now there were just 3 on the walkway. One of them had a portable auspex in his hand. They moved as one, firing arcs overlapping seamlessly as they ran along the walkway, eyes and bolt guns sweeping the vast chamber. Light flashed through the opening in the dome above, brilliant white, blinding, strobing. The Imperial Fists looked up, and then froze, staring at the fire pouring from Terra's sky. The sirens screamed louder and shifted in tone. The sirens were a drumbeat. Everything was a blur, but everything was also so clear. The Imperial Fist stepped back,